What's up, Radio Choo Surgeon here, up here at Bert's Barracuda, and I'm cold calling today, something I love to do just to see what kind of metal they have on the floor. It's Bert's, so I know that there's a metric ton, or actually an American ton, of Harley Davidson sitting inside on the showroom floor. They got a bunch of used ones too, but when I come up here, I like to peruse the used section of metric motorcycles. And while I might not know what a kilometer is, I do know that I love me some Hondas, and there's always a few Hondas on the floor here, and I never know what kind of video I'm going to make when I come up here. It just depends on what they have. I never really ask first, I just show up. But today, there happens to be enough Hondas that have been traded in on Harley Davidsons that I can do an entire episode on why a Harley Davidson dealership is the best place to buy a used Honda motorcycle. First up here for Hondas is the Africa Twin, which I already know is going to be a favorite of the video, so I had to do it first. When it comes to adventure bikes, I think that BMW still holds the crown of most bikes on the road. I'm not even going to touch on what's the best adventure bike, because my adventure bike is a 2001 Sportster. But if BMW has more bikes on the road that are ADV bikes than anybody else, KLR owners punch in the air right now, I think that a close second would be the Africa Twin. Now, I'm completely making that up. I have no idea if that's true or not, but damn, I see a lot of these things on the road. There's got to be something to it. Everyone and their brother just raves about what a freaking amazing motorcycle this is. And unsurprisingly, because it's a Honda, usually they make an amazing motorcycle. You get a Honda if you don't want to do things like break down, have anybody ask you what kind of motorcycle it is, receive any sort of female attention whatsoever. For the most part, Hondas are pretty nerdy. The Africa Twin is definitely no exception. You've taken the most dad of all dad segments, the ADV segment. This is dad jeans, and you've wrapped Honda around it, and that is up to another level. This motorcycle is cargo jorts, grass-stained New Balances, and a propane grill wrapped up in a red, white, and blue package. And I gotta be honest, I really like it. I've always wanted to try out an Africa Twin. I think that the whole 270-degree crank that all the twin engines have gone to, the parallel twin engines, it sounds so freaking good with an exhaust, even though this one has stock exhaust on it. But I don't know, man. I think it's a great looking bike. I like it a lot. In this colorway with the blue seat, kind of the HRC thing, it's even got the gold bars on it. It's a great looking bike in my opinion, although most people are gonna think it looks like a big bag of nerd. But as the old saying goes, and it definitely applies to an Africa Twin, who you gonna make happy with that thing? Me. I don't know what the front end of this looks like. Normally, I hate motorcycles whose front ends look like faces. I don't want it to look like a face. I do not like that. This motorcycle is no exception. I don't like that. I don't know if it looks like a Power Ranger or a Gundam or what, or like an angry insect. Not my style at all. But I guess you don't have to look at the front end from back here. And from back here, I really like it. Tell you, in my book, this thing is winning already. A good old-fashioned key. Come on, baby. Get out of here with that Bluetooth crap, especially on something that's supposed to be rugged. The last thing I want is something that relies on some mysterious wireless signal smashing through the ether, just existing in the air. I don't want to have to rely on that to start my motorcycle. Give me a key. This is the dual clutch transmission, so it is an automatic. Definitely a point against it in my book, but a lot of people love them. So let's go ahead and do something very weird on a motorcycle, which is put it in drive. Yeah, not my speed. Plus with that awesome exhaust note, if I put a pipe on this and I want to rev it up and give the whole world some hell yeah, brothers, from the land of the rising sun, I gotta put it in neutral first. And cranking my hog is such second nature to old shade tree surgeon, dude, I might just let her rip while I'm in drive and have a bad day. I guess that'd be one way to find out if this thing does wheelies. Immediately love it. This is my first time on an Africa Twin. I immediately love it. I'm surprised at how low the seat is. I did not think that something that looks this tall, looks like this giant edifice, like the control tower of a battleship or a container ship sticking up here on the tank. But I get on it, and God, I keep reaching for a clutch, but I get on it, and the seat height actually feels super low. Of course, old Shade Tree is a towering 5'12 and a half, so short seat height is relative. For me, the biggest thing with an automatic transmission transmission or just the lack of a clutch, because you can have an automatic transmission and still have a clutch that disengages. The biggest thing for me is whiskey throttle, man. And you know, the answer is learn throttle control. Squeeze the bike with your knees. But adventure bikes notoriously have terrible places to grab it with your knees and ankles compared to a dirt bike. And if you're going through some whoops, I realize not most people are like bombing the whoops on an Africa Twin, but if you're going through some whoops or some deep sand like we have here in Florida, these bikes get all over the place. They get so out of shape and you got to let it dance underneath you. A big part of that, for me anyway, is clutch control. It works together with throttle control, so if I get out of shape and the bars are twisting all around because I'm really bombing through the woods, well, I've always got the clutch to back me up and take the power away from the rear wheel so I don't get whiskey throttle or I don't get out of shape. Now, when you take that away, I've never tried it. I've never tried to go fast off-road on something that didn't have a clutch, but I don't know. It makes me very, very nervous. On the street, it's fine. Who cares? When it comes to getting technical off-road, though, you would have a very hard time convincing me that an automatic transmission with no clutch is better than having a clutch. I just don't believe it's better. Is it substantially worse? Maybe not. I mean, I think it would be. I think it'd be way worse. But maybe it's not substantially worse. But is it better? I don't think that's possible. After what most people do on adventure bikes, which is go down some gravel roads, yeah, I'm sure it's fine. Oh, that's wide open from there? Oh, that's kind of disappointing. I mean, once it gets up and goes, that's fine, but I would have expected it to kick down. My previous adventure bike was a Ducati Multistrada, and I'm telling you right now, the Africa Twin, whether you find this a good thing or a bad thing, is no Multistrada, especially not with the automatic transmission. All right, we're going 60 miles an hour. It says we're in 6th gear. Let's see what wide open throttle does from here. All right, downshifted to 4th. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, it's not bad. You're not going to get bored. I mean, I'm being so picky. This bike is plenty fast, that's for sure. It's plenty fast, but again, it ain't no Multistrada. I don't know what I'm bitching about. My current adventure bike, a 2001 Sportster, yeah, the Africa Twin will put its dick in the dirt, even though I got a 1250 kit on it. Also, I'm just like, man, isn't one of the points, at least for me, but one of the points of having an adventure bike is ripping big fat wheelies on something that doesn't look like it should do big fat wheelies. It's just doing wheelies on adventure bikes with metal bags on them is so fun and it looks so funny, but you have no clutch. What am I supposed to do? Do a neutral drop with the transmission? Come on, man. I can't bless the rest of the world with any rev limiter. Hell yeah, brothers. I can't crank my hog at all on this thing. Honda said no hog cranking allowed. And on top of no hog cranking, they also don't let me do any dank nooners. Dude, Honda's the king of the land of no fun anymore. Come on, y'all. Now, I'm sure I could bounce this thing into a wheelie if I really tried, but here's the thing. I suck at wheelies, but just because you suck at something doesn't mean you don't want to do it. Just ask any of my ex-girlfriends, and I still want to be able to do wheelies, so I'm not going to be able to butt bounce this thing into a wheelie because I'm terrible at them. All I can really do is rev it up and dump the clutch, and you've taken that away from me. Let's actually accelerate from 1st gear this time. Oh, dude, didn't even let me get out of the corner to friggin' accelerate hard before it put me in 2nd. Dude, this thing, it feels like it's got way too much nanny control for me. I really like it, though. You're reaching for the clutch again. I do really like it. I really, really dig this motorcycle. Oh, man, it accelerates good. It feels good. And it did feel like it started to pull the front wheel up a little bit. But with all the rest of the, you know, no fun gadgets on this thing, something tells me it's probably got wheelie control, too. I feel like I'm probably being a little unfair to this thing. This is a cool bike. All right, let's go from a complete stop so we don't get any accidental 2nd gear shifts here. If you line it up just right and crack the throttle wide open, it hauls ass. But if you're going somewhere and you start off a little slow and you want to pin it after you're coming out from a turn from a stop, it's going to shift you into 2nd. Now, there's probably a sport mode on here somewhere. There's a whole lot of buttons on here, and I am not going to figure out what they do. Whenever I do these reviews, and they're not reviews, they're just test rides, I don't really like to approach them like knowing every single thing about a bike. I don't do my research beforehand because most people don't, man. So I like to come at this like most people would would, which is literally knowing nothing. Now, there's a couple different reasons for that. One, I feel like that's how a lot of other people would come at it, so I don't want to come up here and just like extol all the flashbang gizmo non-contraption attributes of this motorcycle. I want to come at it and go like, hey, this is what it feels like just to twist the throttle. The buttons, the modes, the freaking super fancy LCD porno show and dash.
Up and down and up they going.
All that stuff I could care less about. Some people care, but for me, I care about what happens when I twist that sucker wide open and how it feels and how it handles. That's what I want to know about. Now, it looks like if you're above 50 miles an hour, downshifting to fourth is about all you get. The exhaust note actually sounds really good even with just stock exhaust on it. I really love the way these bikes sound. I think if this thing had a clutch, I would be having a very different experience on it right now. I get it. You can make the arguments for the automatic transmissions, and I'll tell you, on the Goldwing that I rode around, I really liked it, but what I'm doing on a Goldwing is very different from what I'm going to want to do on an Africa Twin. And a lot of people will say, well, all people ever do on these adventure bikes is tour on them. They treat them like regular touring bikes. They never take them off-road. Well, I don't care. I'm talking about what I would do with it. I don't care what anybody else does with it. This is how I feel about the motorcycle. And I realize that maybe this makes this not a review for everybody, but I know a lot of the people who watch the channel are like me. So I'm giving a review from my perspective. I mean, not a review, not a review. I don't know. I would call it a first. I'm just freaking riding the bike, dude. I don't do reviews. I do love the colors though. I like how I'm sitting on it. I like the hand. I like to get myself on one with the clutch because I really think I'd like it a lot. But as for this one, no hog cranking, no wheelies. Like, I don't know, Honda. Honda's not beating the king of the land of no fun allegations today, that's for sure. Handles like a freaking dream though. I really like it. That's what I always say about ADV bikes though. Adventure bikes, they're just kind of like sport bikes for fat people. Speaking of sport bikes for fat people, I gotta be almost positive that somebody traded this Africa Twin in on a Pan America. And I'll tell you right now, boys, with the automatic version, it'd be a no-brainer. The Pan Am will put this thing's dick in the dirt. And the Pan America, dude, there's no way the Africa Twin could keep up with the Pan Am. Those things are freaking rocket ships, dude. Now, before I say which one I would rather have, I'd want to ride one of these with a clutch. With the automatic, I'd be the Pan Am for me, that's for sure. But there are things about the Pan America that I'm not super fond of that I like a lot better about this thing. In fact, the seating position and the heat of the engine, those stand out right away. But the seating position and the feel of the engine and the fact that there's not a lot of heat coming off the engine, I really, really like that compared to a Pan Am. The lack of wheelies, no hog cranking, and it's just really not that fast. What a spoiled, rotten piece of crap I am. It's not that fast. My daily drivers are all freaking 0 to 60 whenever, and I'm complaining about this not being that fast. It's fast, but it ain't Pan America fast. And trust me, I am a Honda fanboy. There's going to be all the Africa Twin boys in there are going to be crying into their Wheaties right now, going, the Africa Twin is like naming all this stuff, being like, it's more reliable, it's cheaper, it's all this stuff. I mean, those things might be true, actually. But I'm just doing this by the seat of my pants, okay? These are first impressions, man. And first impressions are, this bike could use a harsh injection of balls. This Honda might be red, white, and blue, but it needs 10 cc's of freedom injected into its stack. Or some of these new Harleys are no better with all their nanny controls, so trust me, I realize that I am a hypocrite sometimes. I mean, I don't know, maybe a hypocrite most of the time, but I'll tell you this, hypocrites have more fun, okay? Divers do it deeper and cowboys do it longer, but a hypocrite, baby, a hypocrite always does that one little dirty thing you like. I'm being a little too harsh. I like this motorcycle a lot. I like everything about it. Well, no, I don't like everything. That's a lie. I literally just told a lie. I don't like everything about it. The automatic transmission, totally bogus. I do not like that at all. No, sir, I do not. That is bullcrap. Everything else, I really like. And now Honda is going to put us in a very uncomfortable place. No, it's not the back of a Volkswagen. It's on top of a CBR 1000. The CBR 1000 is like the white Oakleys of motorcycles. It's exactly the kind of bike I would imagine that a dude with the lifted white F350 with underglow all over the suspension that's never seen a speck of mud. This is the kind of motorcycle I'd imagine he'd ride, which is hilarious to me because the big four in Japan make these motorcycles are just like the bleeding edge of technological doodads and whiz bangs and go fast, and they pour all their R&D into these things, and then they ship them to America and they inevitably end up in the hands of a piece of trailer trash like me. A lot of people assume I hate sport bikes. I don't. I love what sport bikes do. They sound cool and they go fast. I just really don't like riding them. I used to have one like most teenagers here in Florida. My very first motorcycle was a GSXR 750, and somehow I managed to avoid the Gixxer cull that prevents so many Florida youths from becoming Florida men. But I still love sport bikes. I just really don't love the riding position. It's not for me. And a lot of people would say, hey, I'm a big boy. I don't want to get on a sport bike. I'm going to look stupid. Stop it with that talk. I don't care how big you are. You live your truth. You achieve your dream. Be a meatball on a toothpick. Ride this thing around like a motorized thong and raise hell, my brothers. There's no reason you can't have fun on a sport bike if you're a big boy. And if you're that worried about what you look like on a motorcycle that is going to ruin the fun you have on it, you probably have a hard time having fun anywhere. For me, it's not about what I look like on the motorcycle. I could care less about that. It's just that, I don't know, man. It's not real easy on my wrist because I'm not used to it. But damn, I really like what they do when you twist the throttle wide open. So let's get to that. Bright red CBR 1000. If the Africa Twin's a mathlete that's in chess club and getting pushed into lockers, the CBR 1000 is the one doing the pushing. This is a bully's bike, plain and simple. Usually the second I get out here into a street, I crack a bike wide open, but you know, with the CBR 1000, you have to be a little more on top of how much room you have in front of you before you start cranking your hog. The seating position is definitely not for me. It is what it is, baby. I just wish they'd put this motor in a cruiser, man, and not even like a standard motorcycle. I know you got the CB 1100 and stuff like that, but that ain't the motor out of this bike, that's for sure. I think the last true cruiser with an inline four-cylinder motorcycle would have to be the KZ 1000P, and that was using a motor that was designed in the 70s. I'm just imagining something like that with a modern motor in it. I don't know why they've always been so loath to bring us that. Yeah, Honda did their thing with the V4s, with the Magnas back in the day. The V65 Sabre and Magna were phenomenal bikes, dude, and they absolutely ripped. Some of the fastest things on the road. Now, why couldn't we get that same concept with this motor in it? Or even better, the newer VFR motor, except not neutered like they did when they put it in the off-road VFR. Like, why can't we get a Rebel 1000 RR? Why can't we bring back the Honda Magna with the newer VFR 1200 engine? You imagine a new Magna that made 180 some horsepower, and they'd be lined up around the block for that. And even if they weren't lined up around the block, well, I'd be first in line. It's one of those motorcycles that, yeah, this is awesome. It's so fucking badass. It's just that the motor is badass. The suspension is badass. It's everything else kind of wrapped around it that's just not for me. Like, I want this. I want this motor. I want this power. I just don't want to have to experience it like this, man. It's okay for a little while, you know? I wouldn't mind going to a track day. I can see the appeal of this in the same way that I see the appeal of my KTM 300, my dirt bike. I'm not out cruising on my KTM 300 XCW. I am doing a very specific thing with that motorcycle. I'm either racing or I'm riding off-road at a very high rate of speed. Now for this thing, I don't know, it's a race bike, man. Why can't you give me this in a package that I actually wanted? And I know they make the naked version, but I go further. I don't just want the naked version. I don't want the Street Fighter version. Like, give me a cruiser, man. Bring back the old style CBs that you had in the 80s. Bring back the Magna. Yeah, they're not going to, of course. You know, nobody consulted me when they decided what models to put out. Shame on them. I'm open for consultations. I have a very high fee, but I promise it's worth it. And that doesn't mean I, like, hate you if you ride a sport bike. I'll get that sometimes. Someone will be like, I ride a sport bike. I'm sorry. Like, don't think that, dude. I don't care. I think this is an awesome bike. It's just not for me. It's all right. That just means more sport bikes for you, bud. And trust me, I want this bike. I just don't want it like this, man. Although it makes a very good argument once you pull that throttle even halfway open. Crack it wide open. I'm gonna get comments. People are like, you're afraid to put it wide open. I'm not afraid to put it wide open. I just don't want to do a flyby on a Corvette, because a Corvette like that with a wing on the back, I'm telling you, if you fly by on a CBR, that's gonna initiate some sort of response in that guy that I don't feel like dealing with right now. It's impossible to ignore. It's like cats and dogs. If you do a flyby on a crotch rocket past a Corvette, you have started a chain of events into motion that you cannot stop. And while any other day I might be willing to roll the dice, as much as I mess around on Bert's bikes, this is one of Bert's bikes. I'm not trying to get into a street race on it. Yeah, it's fast. That's fast enough. Why can't you just give me this in a cruiser, Honda? Come on. I want this, dude. I really, really want this. I just don't want it in this bike, okay? You'd think they would have caught on. The big four Japanese manufacturers spent so much time copying Harley Davidson, and then they just stopped and never made their copies good, in my opinion. Like, they were good copies, they were good motorcycles, but I feel like they never improved on it in a way that was unique to the kind of bikes they built. And now that Harley Davidson has gone full bore into our motorcycles handle good and they go fast, I'm like, Honda, do that one. You see what Harley's doing now? I love what Harley's doing now. They're putting like big suspension and big motors in their bikes right out of the factory. Like, Honda, make a cruiser like that, man. And while, you know, they did make some muscle cruisers, we had the M109 and the VTX 1800, the Vulcan 2000, the Rocket 3, like all these bikes. But at the end of the day, they never put them both together. They never made like a super sporty, well-handling cruiser that also had a big inch motor that wasn't just like a traditional V-twin. I mean, the Rocket 3, I guess, would be the only one that really broke that mold. BMW is doing a really good job of that right now. So I guess the Euro boys get it, the Diablo from Ducati. Like, why can't Japan get with the program on that? And I know it's not for everybody. There's plenty of people out there who are like, I want the CBR exactly how it is. This is the bike for me. Or they want the naked version of it. And I get it. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to have that bike. I just want the version that I have in my head too. I guess as close as we're gonna get right now is a Buell Super Cruiser. I think it's making like 170 some horsepower and it weighs like 400 some pounds. That's what I want, dude. When I say I want the Rebel 1000 RR, I'm looking at the Buell Super Cruiser. I want a bike that's a cruiser style motorcycle that's under 500 pounds that makes like 170 horsepower. Like, is that so much? Actually, that is a lot to ask. But is that so much to ask? That's a big ask. But come on, dude. Honda, I know you could do that. And don't detune it like you did with the VFX. It's always just the most annoying thing in the world. Like, detuned for torque. Why? When everyone says that, they're like, oh, it's a leader bike. It's been tuned for torque, like detuned. Dude, ride a leader bike. Ride a modern 1000cc motorcycle. They don't need any more torque. Like, what the hell are you talking about? You just ride the bike like it's supposed to be ridden, and it makes plenty of power in exactly the ways you want it to, as long as you keep the RPMs where they're supposed to be for the engine. Like, stop detuning these engines. You're not upgrading them, in my opinion anyway. I think they're just making them a little more safe for people. So, like, stop trying to make motorcycles safe. Let's go back to when sex was safe and motorcycles were dangerous. I like that combo a lot better. It's an awesome bike. I like it a lot. CBR 1000, if you got one of these motorcycles, you have a badass machine, my friend. Is it for me? Absolutely not. All I really feel on this motorcycle is just, I feel a longing for something that doesn't exist. I want this motor. I just don't want this bike. Well, from a CBR 1000 to almost completely the other side of the spectrum. This is a Honda Shadow Aero 750. This is one of those motorcycles that Honda has been making unchanged for so many years, besides eventually just like throwing fuel injection on it one year, and that's just to satisfy emissions, not to make it perform better. That the claims of Harley never changing what they do are so ridiculous, because you look at something like this, which has been around forever. Now, I personally think that's a good thing. That means there's so many aftermarket parts available for it. So many people have made things for it. It's very easy to get parts for it. A lot of customization available for it. The Honda Shadow is a great platform, and there's a reason they've been able to leave it unchanged for so long. It's an amazing beginner bike. They're always cheap to get a hold of, and at the end of the day, even though it doesn't look like much, it looks like kind of your standard bike, government-issued motorcycle when it comes to cruiser motorcycles. It's still got good lines. They make cool bobbers. You can tour on them. It's a Shadow. It's gonna run forever. And Any problems that they do have are so well documented on forums that you could probably take every nut and bolt off this thing and rebuild it just from a few YouTube videos. Now, I haven't verified that, but there's so many of them on the road and so many people love them and so many people have been riding them for so long that a Honda Shadow is usually a good bet. This view is going to be very familiar for a lot of people watching right now. Now, the Honda Shadow was a lot of people's first introduction to motorcycles. It might not have brought as many people as the Honda Rebel into the world of motorcycles, but it deserves an award nonetheless. This motorcycle is responsible for kindling the love of many, many souls out there for all sorts of two-wheeled adventures. A lot of them started out on a Honda Shadow, man, and I'll be honest, right now it reminds me of an early bike I loved with these big beach bars. It feels just like my Kawasaki VN 1600, but slightly smaller. First bikes, the first bike for your old lady, like, I don't know, man, the Honda Shadow sees a lot of use and I gotta give it up for it. It's long in the tooth, but it's a faithful machine that makes new riders, and any motorcycle that makes a lot of new riders, that's something I can dig. No surprises, the bike does exactly what you'd expect it to do. It makes cool motorcycle noises, it's pretty damn comfortable, it's gonna be stone cold reliable, and you're gonna be able to get parts for it next day, same day, Buddy Bezos delivery. And when it comes to a bike, that's usually my baseline. Is it easy to fix? Can I get the parts easily? Is it gonna run forever? You know, we'll just build from there, but that's a damn good base. And cheap too. I think this bike is like a couple $1,000s here at Harley. I'm not really sure. I know they're not asking a whole lot for it though. Runs like a top though. There's no reason you couldn't slap a duffel bag on this thing and take it across the United States and back without any worries whatsoever. That goes for pretty much any Honda Shadow, not just this one, because if you do break down in the middle of Timbuk3, middle of nowhere, just left of Albuquerque, someone is going to know how to fix this bike. It's just like the shovel head when you break down in the middle of nowhere, where there's always some old coot who knows how to work on a shovel head and has shovel head parts around. There will always be somebody who knows how to fix a Honda Shadow. And that's assuming you don't just go to YouTube University, watch a video, and figure out how to fix it yourself. And that's also assuming that it even breaks down. It's a Honda Shadow. That event is unlikely. Change the oil in the air filter and, oh, actually I was going to say don't rag on it too hard, but you could probably beat the hell out of it and change the oil in the air filter and you'll be just fine for, I don't know, probably as many miles as you feel like putting on the damn thing. It's not going to set any land speed records, but at least can get out of its own way. I've gone farther on slower motorcycles. There are worse ways to see America than on the back of a couple $1,000 motorcycle that gets that good of gas mileage and is this reliable. For me personally, I'd spend a couple $1,000s on an old moldy Goldwing, but there's a lot of guys out there that are afraid of Goldwings. They're definitely more complicated machines. They have vacuum lines and freaking doodads and whiz-bang stuff from the 80s that really has no business being on a motorcycle. The Honda Shadow is the exact opposite of all that. This is about as simple as it gets. It's an engine and two wheels and a 5-speed transmission, and that's about it. There's nothing else. This is about as motorcycle gets. It is stone simple. If the Africa Twin is a Gerber multi-tool and the CBR 1000 is a flea market ninja throwing star, then this sucker is a stone hammer. I don't know, maybe something even simpler. What's simpler than a hammer? It's not even a stone hammer. It's a chisel. Because a hammer has two parts, a handle and the head. This is a metal chisel. That's how simple this motorcycle is. Now, if super cheap simplicity is your thing, this is definitely a motorcycle for you. I'm like happy right now. I'm not even like, oh, get me off this thing, stupid little 7. Like, I'm happy. I'm just riding this motorcycle, just putting along. I am very content. I like bike. I'm enjoying being on this motorcycle. It's just putting along, it feels good, it's comfortable. I'm a happy camper. I guess you could say that the shaft drive on this motorcycle makes it more complicated. And I think they made other Honda Shadows with chain drive, but this one has a shaft. Now, there are two ways to argue that. Theoretically, yes, it's more complicated. It's got more moving parts than a chain drive, but unarguably more complicated than a chain drive system. Also, unarguably, that if it fails, much more expensive to fix than a chain drive system. chain drive, throw new chain and sprockets on it, and you're done. If this thing breaks, it's probably totaled the motorcycle, at least for $1 amount. But here's the thing, if you change the oil in the shaft drive, this thing makes probably like 35 horsepower or something like that. You're not gonna break it. Hell, man, even if you don't change the oil, ask Joe the Mountain Jedi. People will put 50, 60,000 miles on these things and never change the oil. Should you? Yes. Can you get away with not doing it? Probably. You shouldn't. You definitely shouldn't. You should change it. But you could probably get away with never looking at it through the entire lifespan of the motorcycle, and you might be okay. So just do yourself a favor. If you're going to go with the stone cold chisel simplicity of a Honda Shadow 750, change the oil and change the fluid in the rear differential. Put a new air filter on it, and you have a stalwart companion that will take you anywhere you ask it to. Well, that's going to about do it for Hondas at Burt's Barracuda right now. There are actually a couple other ones. The Honda Magna is still there. I can't believe the Fury is still here. That's wild to me. I thought for sure somebody would have snatched up the bright banana Fury, but nobody's grabbed it yet. And of course, if you're looking for a Harley, whether it's used or new, always vouch for Burt's. They're good dudes. You know, you don't really get anything special for saying that Shade Tree Army sent you or you're from Brapstar, but because it always tickles my fancy when I come in here and someone tells me that somebody from the channel came in to get a bike or just say what's up, because they always got cool stuff going on over here. It's always a party. I like Burt's for a bunch of different reasons, not the least of which is they don't send all these metric bikes to auction. Burt figures that he wants to put people on bikes that are affordable and cheap, and a person with their knees in the breeze that's riding a motorcycle, whether it's a Harley or not, that's a good thing. There's also a few other reasons I like Burt, and I'm gonna get into that right now. Myself and Blockhead Garage have teamed up with Burt's to help out homeless veterans. This is something that Burt does because it's something that he believes in. If you guys didn't know this, here in America, if a veteran does not have an actual physical address, they cannot receive their very much earned, very much deserved VA benefit. And Burt's Salute to America Foundation, that's exactly what they do. They bridge the gap and they take these veterans who are homeless, which is something I can't even imagine happening in this country, but it does. They take homeless veterans and they bridge the gap. They get them a place to live. They set them up so they actually have an address and a roof over their head so they can start to collect those VA benefits and rebuild their life. Burt is giving away over $140,000 in prizes, including a supercharged 135 cubic inch road glide that's being built by the boys over at Blockhead Garage. On top of that, he's also giving away a Sportster chopper, a few other bikes, multiple fishing trips. That's all happening over the next few months. I'll have a link to that down below. Grab a ticket if you've got the extra money. Don't buy a ticket if you don't have any extra money. This is a charity. It's supposed to help people, not hurt people. But if you feel like being a bad person doing good things, that link is right down below. And who knows, maybe karma will point her finger at you and it'll be your time to come down to Florida and party with us in the Wang. Till next time, y'all, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you got those notifications on. It helps out a lot. I appreciate the amazing support from each and every one of you. For myself, Shay Lisi, Cami Bay, Burt's, Forgotten Angels, Brapstar, and the whole deal. Y'all rock. Wait, did I say it? Yeah, no. Till next time, keep it weird.
Crashing through the sky comes a fearful cry. Shade tree, army. Shade tree, army. Armies of the night, evil taking flight. Shade tree, army. Shade tree, army. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Panic spreading far and wide. Can the world oppose the deadliest of foes? Shade tree, army. Shade tree, army. Who will risk it all to end the evil call of Shade Tree, army. Shade Tree, army. They never give up, they never say die, walking tall with banners high. Shade Tree Army, a ruthless gang of scum, villains, freaks, and bikers determined to rule the world.